We could not possibly talk about The Godfather without our fantastic friend, Ben Mankiewicz, who we miss dearly. OG, what the flick friend and co-host Ben Mankiewicz. He knows a thing or two about movies. Perhaps you have heard him from over at the Turner Classic Movies. Go give him a view. Go check him out.
All you non-cable cutters. Hi.
Right. Hi, Ben. We missed you.
Hi. Yeah, of course, you can cut cable, but we're on the streaming bundles. I had cut cable, for crying out loud. I have Hulu plus Live TV. Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
So, Ben, The Godfather came out 50 years ago. I know that you're also watching The Offer as we are over at our Patreon, which is why we're going to talk about The Godfather today. The Offer finale airs this week. Do you want to tell us what The Godfather is about?
Oh, you're going to give Ben the plot synopsis? We don't see him for ages, and this is what you're going to saddle him with?
Yeah.
Do you want to do it, Alonzo? You can do it.
No, Alonzo, I literally, as you know, I still don't want to do the plot synopsis. So, fire away.
Hollywood big shot's gonna give you what you want.
He says there's no chance.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Based on the novel by Mario Puzo, this is the saga of the Corleone family in America, who are in organized crime, but really they're capitalists. And this is late stage capitalism in action. We begin at the Connie's wedding, and of course go through the horse's head and the shootout in front of the fruit stand and the meeting of the five families and Sicily, and what happens in this movie. It is an American classic. And it's impossible to watch this movie now, much as when we all gathered to rewatch the original Star Wars trilogy. You can't even begin to fathom a time in which this movie didn't exist, in which it wasn't just part of the air we breathe.
It's true. When you watch it, you realize how many famous lines are in it. It's like when you rewatch any version of Hamlet or Macbeth, and it's like, oh yeah, that line is from this.
Yeah, so. Can't do it, Sally.
And it's such a good example of a movie adaptation of a book that is very different from the book, right? I mean, what was excised from the book, and namely was wisely excised, I think, in the film, and it just becomes it's a different beast than the book, and many people like the book, but the movie is something else and is wonderful on its own. And Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola, not the first choice to direct it, but the ultimate director of the film. I mean, he thought just big swaths of the book had to come out, but then formed this lovely working relationship with Mario Puzo, even despite what he desired to take out of the book. So it's a really nice adaptation that shows you the value of both art forms, I think.
Ben, how many times have you seen The Godfather?
I have no idea. Plenty. Yeah. A lot. And, of course, I saw it more when you flipped channels and when AMC, I think, would have it. Right.
Yeah.
But now, that you don't flip channels, you don't see Shawshank Redemption 9 times a year. The way
on
you
TNT.
Because Godfather was always one of those movies that no matter where you found it, as you were looking around, you stayed with it. Right. You couldn't, if you were flipping channels and The Godfather was on, even if it was whether it was the 8th minute or the 80th minute,
sure.
You were, I think, going to stay to the end.
So rewatching it for the first time in a long time over the weekend, I sat on that couch and did not get up for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I was struck by the way it's paced. I mean, first of all, it feels substantive and weighty and epic. And it is important from the very, very beginning. That first long, slow pull, like it grips you from the very, very beginning. But just the way it's so steadily paced and the way the violence is so just part of this life. It's not like great melodramatic building to violence. Like it's just part of their lives. And the way it's so steadily paced up until the very end, like it's so methodical and so expert. Of course, the way it's shot is so dramatic and so artful and so beautiful. And it feels like it matters. And then we're watching The Offer. And of course, so much of The Offer is, I'm sure, playing with the lore of the making of The Godfather. But the fact that it must not have had a giant budget must be true, right? And so to accomplish this on scraping every penny is impressive.
Right. Well, and you definitely, I've come to appreciate certain things based on the way it's told to us. The Offer, like just the Sicily sequence, like we're in The Offer, Coppola's like, we have to shoot it there. Everything is old, and you look at that and you're like, yeah, you couldn't really recreate that in Burbank. You need those sun-baked, like village, kind of buildings that just look all dried out. And I like the fact that, that we see the scene where Al Ruddy pays the guy $35 to use the cafe, and the cafe's in the movie.
Yeah.
It's the same cafe.
I think, Christy, you really brought up a great point that I don't know that I'd thought about. So many violent movies, even so many mob movies, some of them good movies, some of them good violent movies, some of them good violent mob movies. There is a callous indifference to violence, which, or, you get the feeling that they're enjoying it. And there's something different here, I think, in The Godfather. Yes, it's that they're neither indifferent or excited about it. Somehow it is established that, man, this is, like being a paramedic, right?
Tragedy. You're going to see this stuff.
Right. Tragedy and the loss of your friends and your enemies is part of life. And the manner in which, and I don't know whether this came from Coppola, I don't recall reading ever this, or the actors themselves, but the manner in which the other characters respond to violence and then just move on most of the time, unless obviously it's somebody in their family. And, when they're obviously when Brando is shot, the children react in an appropriate way. I think that is really revelatory. And I think that's a key part of what we take away. That has become the identity of The Godfather. I don't know whether that was intentional or whether that happened organically, but I think it's certainly worth noting. So
yeah, even like the Sonny shooting, like it's a huge deal, a huge turning point for this whole family and the whole story. But it's just like, all right, we're just going to pull up to the toll booth. It's just going to happen. And
that's right. No, that's right. And so it's right. It's
the
not
music
just
doesn't go nuts. Yeah,
that's right. So a big part, you guys are so smart. So Christy brings up that point, but then a big part of it is not so much that how the characters respond to it, it's how the movie responds to it, right? It's how Coppola responds to it. And he refuses, even in those dramatic moments. The two, James Caan and Marlon Brando, are shot in this movie, right? The two of the three main characters, one of them killed, one of them nearly killed in a shooting. And he doesn't get us excited about that, right? I mean, he really lets that happen. He has the moment has to get us excited about it, rather than the typical ways that a movie would tell us about it. I wonder how much tension was there for viewers when Sonny pulled up to the toll booth when they hadn't, unlike now where we all know what happens to Sonny at the toll booth, but what happened then? So
yeah, when that guy ducks, I'm sure just like,
sure,
no,
yeah, right, yeah.
And Al Pacino is so great in this. I think we think about like later Al Pacino roles and how he's like a parody of himself, and there's that over the top hoo-ha, but like it's so understated, and that makes it chilling and also charismatic. There's a total warmth in his eyes and a charisma to him, but it's small in a way that like we wouldn't see for much longer.
I think that's clearly directing from Coppola deciding he wanted Pacino then to helping him with this performance, that you really get Michael had no secret plan to take over the family. It happened to him. And there's a slow realization that he had no choice, even though it was clearly not his desire.
The pacing is so interesting, and like there's the whole thing in The Offer about like, you got to cut 30 minutes and stuff, and I can see where somebody who's just looking at it through the lens of we need more showings a day is just going to think, oh well, you can take this stuff out, nothing happens. Yeah, and so that wedding sequence, nothing happens, but everything happens. You learn everything you need to know about how this family works and who these individual characters are. And there's so much along the way that doesn't fit the kind of like Robert, whatever, that guy, who tells you how to write a 3-act story, blah, blah, screenplay. Like it really does kind of sneak up on you. And before you even realize, you just think you're sort of soaking in this family ambience. And then you realize, oh, no, I have learned all the things I need to know to take me forward to what the actual plot is going to be.
And now that we're watching The Offer, I'm wondering, like, okay, once all over again, what's true and what's not? Like, did Brando really just find that cat on the studio lot and like just have him in his lap? Like, I don't know.
I think that's true. I don't know how much is true of The Offer, and it's frustrating. But the flip side is, I just will say quickly about The Offer. I think what it does capture, and it's the most important thing, is you want big picture. In big picture, it gives you a sense whether Al Ruddy did all these things or not, of how hard it is, and how, let me rephrase it, how valuable it is to have a producer like Al Ruddy on the ground. We overlook producers all the time because sometimes you see 17 producers, 16 of them just gave money, right? But somebody is on the ground, and every director, Coppola, Scorsese, certainly Spielberg, they will tell you, no, man, we need a producer. And the producer is critical. And that's the guy who gets everything done and sort of clears the decks for the director to direct, for the filmmaker to make a film and not have to worry about securing that location.
Ben, we missed you. Come on back soon and see us.
Yeah, it's fun. Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye.